Howdy folks, how we going? Welcome to the brewery. Just a quickish video. I'm doing over 3 days the tasting on these hawkers from Yeast to West. And pretty much everyone's sort of seen these floating around on Facebook. A lot of hype about them. Basically, hawkers have brewed an IPA. It's a standard American IPA, and they've brewed it, or fermented, with 3 different yeasts to see what each different yeast brings, to the party, as they say. So I've posted this on Facebook, and a few people have said, yeah, are you going to do a bloody video on these? And I really hadn't planned on it, but I thought, yeah, why the heck not? We'll do a little bit of a thing, because I think actually a few people are interested in seeing what the differences are. But anyway, today's Sunday. Saturday I sat down, I did this, the first can in the batch, which is US-05. So this is sort of your base, because this is your standard, what they'd normally brew. There's a blurb on the side here, basically talking about, experimentation leads to, different stuff and playing around. So they've brewed up the base IPA, featuring Idaho 7 hops. They've gone into detail about featuring Yakima Chief YCH 701 trial Idaho 7 hops. Now, I'm pretty sure Idaho 7 is no longer a trial hop, so I don't know whether there's a new variant of Idaho 7 that hasn't really been marketed, or whether they're just running with the full name. Idaho 7, as far as I'm aware, has been running around as a full-fledged named hop for a good couple of years now. So, so this one is using the US-05. The original was using US-05, so they can see how that interacts with those base ingredients of a West Coast IPA, and they're going to compare that to Kvike and Firelized yeast. I drank this yesterday. It says on here, this US-05 fermentation temp 24 degrees, apparent attenuation 78 to 82%. 24 degrees I thought was a little warm, but obviously they're pushing with good pressure fermentation to maintain some control over the flavours and esters of the 05, because certainly at 24 degrees without pressure it can run some fairly fruity notes, can get a bit banana-y, well, that's from my experience of it anyway, but certainly can get fruity, so that pressure's going to keep that down. They've got a good attenuation, which means they've got a fairly reasonably fermentable wort, but anyway, that was quite a nice beer. Had some nice light fruit notes. It was actually a bit lighter and a bit less bitter than I would have expecting for a West Coast, but right now, as far as this is I'm not here talking about the whether the beer is actually made any decent or not. And reality is, I'd probably to some degree say, for me, the hawkers once again have just missed the mark on the actual style they were aiming at. But it was a nice beer and I enjoyed drinking it. So, and I wasn't worried about doing big tasting notes on that. It's about looking at the other two brews and how they compare. So this one is Firelized yeast mix, and there's no real great chat about it other than basically changing the words and the place of the words in the bloody can. Firelized mix, fermentation temp 22 degrees, so a little bit cooler, and apparent attenuation 78 to 82 as well. So they're both 6.9%, so they've attenuated exactly the same. Now the Firelized the foliarized yeast is supposed to emphasise and lift the flavours and the aromas, but particularly the flavours of the foliarizing the thiols within in the hop itself, which are the big contributors to the fruity and juicy sort of notes. So the general expectation is by using the foliarized yeasts that you're going to bring up that characteristic. Those very distinct hoppy notes are going to be more distinct. Okay, and yeah, straight off the bat, definitely there's a deeper, more solid fruit base compared to the USA 5, the basic version, where it had a fairly light, bright fruit note. This is definitely a little bit deeper. It's not as bright. It's almost got a dankness compared to the USA 5, but not in a typical dank way, not in that musty, mouldy, danky sort of vibe, just in the fact that it's deeper and a bit more intense. Yeah, definitely has lifted the hop presence. I don't actually, well, not that I don't actually, I don't particularly like the addition that the file brings. I think it can get a little too heavy. Like, for me, it brings in a level of it's like an edge of just a little. It's not piffy, but it's sort of piffy where you're getting into those hard elements of the flavours. Like yesterday was quite bright, was citrusy, but light citrusy, sort of. And yeah, this is sort of, it's picking up that. For me, it picks up some harsher notes. And they tend to overtake everything else. Yesterday, the 05 version had a nice mix of the malt and the hops. Like I said, it was bright, it was light. It was quite fresh tasting, and it was a vibrant beer. This is not in that category. It's nice in its own way, but it is quite different. And obviously, it's going to be many people are going to like the foliarized yeast because they're going to enjoy that extra whack. But for me, it's detrimental. Any beer I've had where it's been used, it's been detrimental to the actual finish of the beer. I feel it's the beer that's been made with the foliarized yeast is better without it. Again, like I said, that's a personal preference, and plenty of people are going to like this more. For me, it's just another method, another way of creating stuff, another way for breweries to get more flavour with less hops, which is not a bad thing. There's only so much hops that are going around, and the less you've got to use in the brew, the less strain it puts on their whole, the whole hop market and the amount of hops that are available, and technically the less cost there should be in brewing the beer. Whilst your yeast factor really should not be any significant difference in price. So it does have its pluses, but as with everything, it's got to come back to the flavour and the drinkability and the enjoyment. And for me, there is less enjoyment in this Firelight Yeast, so it is, like I said, I'm liking it. It's quite drinkable as a standalone beer, but I think the 05 version was definitely a nicer drop all round for me. But as a stand, they both get a thumbs up. But anyway, I'm going to finish this fella. I said it's Sunday, tomorrow's Monday. I'm going to sit down tomorrow afternoon. I'm going to finish the third can in this trio, which is the Kvike can. So I'll be back in just a few seconds. Righto folks, can number 3. Obviously this is the one with the Kvike yeast. Let's get this poured and have a bit of a read of the blurb on the back, see what it has to say. Now, I don't think it actually mentions what Kvike yeast they are using. No mention at all. It's just the same. It's the same blurb as the last one. They just changed it around from. We got running with Kvike, Bill George. Fermentation temp 30 degrees. Apparent attenuation 76 to 82. Now I don't understand what that actually means, because these are all sitting on 6.9%, which means they have all apparently attenuated exactly the same. So there's no range. That's simply the attenuation range of the yeast. I don't know. I don't know exactly what that means. But it's interesting they've gone 30 degrees with the Kvike, which to me indicates it could be an Oslo or a Lutra, even a Hornindal. I certainly wouldn't expect it to be a Voss if they've done it at 30, because it's fairly fairly good information on doing the Vosses at 35 to get the best out of them. But they've left it ambiguous, so thank you, a hell of a lot for that, Hawkers. It would be nice to actually know which strain it was. You've told us it's US 05, you might as well just set a clean fermenting ale yeast if that's the path you're going to go on. But anyway, it smells nice. Nice fruits on the nose, which has come through all the beers, and it's probably on the nose, it's probably sitting between the 05 and the Firelight yeast on where the aroma is. Okay. There's definite notes of the Kvike, and there's notes of Voss. Yeah, there's a very apparent mandarin-y type of note, and not a lot else in the way of hop flavour. Where this was quite, on the 05 was quite bright and had a fairly, lively sort of hop presence, and where the Fire was quite deep and intense, this is sort of just pulled back to a one-dimensional, I said, mandarin-y sort of a vibe. Okay, it's not bad. It's like, it's certainly it's a nice enough beer. There's enough of the Kvike character that for me it's detracting a little bit from the beer, but not a massive amount. And I think they've dialed it back to 30, and that could have been a deliberate effort to not push the Kvike too hard into its range. I get savage Mandarin from Kvike used at its that recommended sort of mid-30s. Even at 30, there's a fair whack of hop in there, sort of disguising it a little bit, but it's certainly much more pronounced. I said I wouldn't have picked any Mandarin in the first version, so this clearly is yeast driven. And yes, that's exactly what they're looking at. It's looking exactly at what does a different yeast bring to the same beers. As it sits as a standalone beer, if someone hadn't stated that was a Kvike yeast, I don't know if I'd really pick it. It would probably come across more just as a heavily Mandarin focused hop. Like I said, the only reason I know any difference is because I've tasted the base beer, knowing that that's not part of the hop profile. Like I said, if someone hadn't told me what the yeast was, I wouldn't be picking it as yeast. So I think they've certainly controlled the impact of how the yeast was going to perform. So as I said, I'm a little bit on that. I really would have liked to listen at 35, where it's recommended to be used, really showing its whole true character. But then I'm happy they haven't, because I don't particularly like that. There's enough. I said, if this is pushing into that Mandarin-y vibe, that I think would have got even more intense had they pushed that temperature. As it sits, it's restrained a little bit, so it's done the job. I've never been a big fan of Kvike. I've had a couple of beers over the last few years that have been used in different strains and haven't been too bad, but overall it's not something I'm in any rush to incorporate into my day-to-day brewing. This hasn't produced any negatives as far as the Kvike goes. And I have always said, there's a place for it in certain styles of beers. It can play along, but like I said, knowing what that base beer was, the Kvike has taken away the brightness of the hops. So that's a negative. It's nice to drink, which is a positive as a standalone beer. I think the issue for me is I think you've wasted a lot of hops in that because you can't taste them. You probably need them for the bitterness, but other than that, it's not really necessary. But anyway, that's a Walker's from Yeast to West. For me, the US 05 base version is the winner. These two are both quite nice, both quite drinkable in their own way, but certainly not any improvement on the base beer. These two are not the same quality as that. So take from that what you will. But anyway, that's me. If you got any comments or any questions, stick them down the bottom. Thumbs up to all the Patreons. Guys, thank you for your support. Keep the channel going. It's a link down the bottom if you're interested. If you're subscribed to the channel, thank you. If you aren't subscribed, hit the button down there, ring the bell, get notified when there's all the videos, you don't miss anything. And if you like what's going on, give me a thumbs up. But for now, that's me. So until see you in the next video. Brewing beer, drinking beer, or talking beer. Good brewing.